Hey everyone, we are going to discuss data visualization using Paraview. Paraview is a tool that we can use for visualizing data in 3D, most commonly used in scientific simulation and the engineering field as well. Anywhere you need to visualize data, you can even use it to visualize data, maybe like anatomy, etc. My interest wasn't to visualize data that is in VKT format because that is the usual. I was asking myself whether it is possible to visualize time series data that is in CSV format, whether you can visualize and analyze it in this tool. So I got data from cargo.com and I did some data cleaning using Python. I used Python to do some data cleaning. I still use Python to convert this data to points data. Uh, Other than it being tabular, I had put it into time series data. And this is the data set. This is the original data set that I uploaded, weather for Paraview. It is a data set for weather forecasting in Seattle for the year 2012. Yeah, so this is the data that I worked with. I had to create a new field of average temperature for better analysis because it would be more representative rather than picking one of these. Yeah, so this is how the tool looks like. This is the environment Paraview. It's starting. Yeah, this is the environment, just like most of the softwares. There you have the file tab, edit, view sources, filters. We shall look at some of these as we continue with the presentation. So when you come to the file tab, you can open. When you click open, you'll be able to, when you click open, to take you to your storage, to your drive, to your storage, so you can pick the file you want to analyze. But me, I just want to come here to recent files and I pick the file I have been working with. So when I check this, they tell me you want load set and I say yeah. So when you upload your file, when you upload your file in CSV, whichever format, as long as the format is supported, you see it in the pipeline browser. And you can select it. When you select it, you see now on the right hand side in the render view or in the spreadsheet view, you'll see your data. If it is in VKT format, you will see here the data in 3D, the image of it. But since this is CSV, you see the data in spreadsheet view. Yeah, so this is the data that I uploaded, and of interest I want to see, we can see this data. This is a simple 3D visualization of this data when you use the table points filter. Yeah. Mm, and this is how you can just create it. Once you are sure that the table points filter is selected, once you're sure it is selected, then you can come and change the coloring. Maybe I want to change the coloring based on the average temperature, and you can select the representation, play around with this to see what suits your context. Yeah, then here down I can come and play around with the properties. Maybe the x column I want it to be index, then y precipitation, and then this z column to be wind. I can see that the coloring has changed against the scale of average temperature. Maybe I can play around with the styling. If I increase the opacity to 5, what happens? And when I also increase the point size maybe to 30, and maybe the line width to 5, the line width is to 5, what happens? So I can play around with this in any way I want. But interesting to note is that it is showing basically two colors, that is blue and red. And the more the intensity tends towards red, it is showing higher temperatures. Then lower temperatures are indicated by blue color. So the more the blue, for lack of a better wording, the more the blue are the color, the more the, that means the lesser the temperature or the more the cold. And the reverse is true for red as well. Yeah. Then the other thing you may be interested in is maybe seeing how these three variables are correlated, how they relate. You can use some tool. For example, you can if you use the plot matrix view, you can be able to have these variables plotted. You can see precipitation. All these are plotted against all these variables are plotted against the index. And yeah, if you want maybe to see the distribution of one of the variables against the index, you can just use a histogram. Yeah, so here I picked average temperature. Maybe you can also use a point chart view to show the correlation between three variables like I did. So from here we can actually see that blue is indicating precipitation, then black is indicating average temperature, and the coffee brown is showing the wind velocity. Yeah, so we can see from this visualization we can be able to derive some insights. For example, we can see that there are spikes in we can see that there are spikes in the precipitation, but these do not necessarily relate to they do not necessarily relate to wind. Yeah. So from this we can be able to see the correlation, but there are more statistical tools we can still use, more statistical features we can use for this to show the correlation. But at least here we can be able to see whether a spike in one cause for a spike in the other. But one, we can tell that there is a cyclical trend when it comes to temperature. Yeah. Then maybe the other thing I wanted to show you is how can you come up with now histogram. For example, you can just come and create a histogram view. You can create a histogram view. You look for it under view. You create histogram view. When you create histogram view, it comes, and you may be interested in selecting which points you want to show, but you can also come and here and then you extract the histogram. When you extract the histogram, they show you that they are plotting bins. So you can come and select the input array. Maybe I want to show the precipitation. Yeah. Maybe I want to show the precipitation. Still, I can play around with these properties if I'm interested. So this is how precipitation is. This is how precipitation is distributed in the data set that I am working with. Yeah, I I can rename this. I can rename this histogram to something that I'm interested. I right click and I put maybe precipitation, precipitation, precipitation. Yeah, I let me close this. I can close this and maybe let me create a new one. I can also create a plot matrix view. I can also create a plot matrix view. Yeah, and then down I can, but make sure that the table to points is selected as you're creating this. When you select table to points, the eye icon becomes active, so you can be able to see your plot matrix with you there. But still here I can set the parameters that I'm interested under series parameters. I can select what I want to visualize in what I want to visualize. For example, if I'm interested in showing the if I'm interested in showing the average temperature, maybe I'm also interested in showing the precipitation. Then I'm also interested in showing the other thing I may be interested in showing could be the wind, wind. Yeah, yeah. So this is a plot matrix. I can rename it to whatever makes sense to me. So from this we can present data. We can present data to key stakeholders and they make meaning out of it. Yeah, and that is what basically I wanted to show you in this presentation. We can play around with more. We can play around with more of these filters. We can play around with more of these filters. For example, for example, I can use the contours, especially if there's having coordinates, but I can also use this slicing to slice my data. Yeah, the clip will slice my data, but these do not necessarily make a lot of meaning in my context, so I don't use them. Thank you for listening. My name is Godfrey Majung.